How are you, sir?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I am very, very well. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to chat with you.
You as well.
Hey, mate, where do we find you today? Are you in New Zealand or are you
Yes, no,
on ground in Australia?
I'm in Melbourne, Australia.
Ah,
Um,
wonderful.
I think it would be a similar situation wherever you are.
Granted, absolutely. Yeah, New Zealand have just jumped back into some restrictions. Yeah, like
Well,
just as a,
totally level four lockdown. So New
yeah.
Zealand's in level four, Melbourne's in level four, Sydney's in level batshit, and so
Absolutely.
yeah, that's kind of the state of play.
Okay, okay. So, I mean, before we get into chatting about the new record and all of that sort of stuff, I just wanted to start with like two personal things.
Yeah.
Uh, One, I've always had the assumption that the name John Toogood was a stage name because, pardon the pun, it's just too good as a stage name. I've only
Yeah.
just recently found out the man was given the name. He's been born into it,
Yeah.
and that's literally just his name. Because I recently had the musing. I was like, man, can you imagine the day that you come up with the stage name Johnny Too Good?
Yeah.
You're just like, man, I've just hit it. This is me forever now. Because like honestly, it's just the perfect stage name. It's just the perfect frontman name. And because it is so good, I just always assumed it was one that you guys came up with. But I mean, how lucky is that? And that he ended up being a frontman.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, maybe the family he was born into made it prophetic, but it's
Yeah.
his full name is Jonathan Charles Toogood.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
Brilliant.
you know, youngest son of Yvonne and Mike Toogood.
Amazing.
Yeah, younger brother to Ray Toogood and Zoe Toogood.
That's so good. I really, really love that. And the second thing is, I actually think I might have your Halloween cosplay idea sorted out for you. So
Okay.
the other day, I do another podcast with a mate of mine, Doug, and each week we bring a song, a movie, and like a chat topic
Yeah.
to the table, right? And my song that week was the previous single that you released, which was Little Demons.
Yeah.
And so I was chatting about that, and he brought up that, like, he was saying, oh, Tom Larkin, he's a real handsome guy, he's like, and, uh, and he said, oh, but I see a little bit of, like, Eddie Izzard in him, right? And then, but I also always see, and I don't know why this is. Maybe it's, and like, this off the bat. I'll admit this. I definitely have a little man crush on a brother. I always see Robert Downey Jr. Right,
See,
and so
is it love or indifference? Is it Eddie or Robert?
well, I'm thinking Tony Stark in drag.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
There it is.
But it's pretty accurate because I kind of got this kind of like fucked up, uneven face. So one side looks quite different from the other, and literally like
Hence the
one side's
duality.
more Robert, one side's more Eddie.
It is. And now you've got Two Face going on.
There you go. So, we're bringing it all together.
Yeah.
And but I think that's a perfect middle ground. That if by chance Eddie and Robert could have a child.
Yeah. It's right there.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get on to the record. So, Old Gods. So it's out on September 24th, but I noted in a bunch of the promos and that sort of stuff, it was originally slated for August 27th.
Yeah, it was supposed to be on Friday.
Yeah, just gone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was that a manufacturing thing? Like the vinyl wasn't necessarily ready, or?
Yeah, so there were a couple of things. First of all, it was a manufacturing thing. Vinyl shipments weren't going to land.
Yep.
The second thing
Pretty
was
common.
Yeah, and second thing was, funnily enough, because we are, physically driven band, we realised that, in say a place like New Zealand, all these stores would be closed. You know what I mean? And
Yes,
there'd be not enough time to do any shipping. So it'd be basically like releasing the album, and the only way you'd really access it is through streaming.
Yeah.
And rock doesn't really do well at streaming. I mean, Shihad have been blessed with some good support from Spotify recently, and so we really appreciate that. And and it's certainly growing. But as a genre, streaming tends to favor some other some other kind of styles more than it does rock. And so for us to go out or release an album and have an event like that without stock in the market and people being able to go and buy it was just like, well, it's not going to work. It's like, we're not releasing, So we've allowed some time for stock to arrive and for people to receive their orders on the right day and everything like that. Yeah.
So, I mean, with the band having been around now for, 25 plus years, does that, and, you've, 5 Kiwi #1 records under the belt, and all of that sort of stuff. Like, can you almost, and I know you definitely don't take this for granted, but I mean, can you just kind of almost bet on that you'll probably, take that crown again with that, just banking on that you've got a really loyal army of fans and that they, will get behind you?
Well, it's one of those phenomena that first week sales for rock bands tend to be inordinately stronger than any other week. Fans go out and buy on the first week. That's how it works. So, I mean, if it was to happen, it would be a result of that phenomenon. And certainly, there's a chance there that we're allowing that to happen. There's certainly no sense of entitlement around that. I mean, even 5 records at #1. And last one was top 10 Australia.
Yeah.
That's amazing to pull off, this far into the game. Correct. We're pretty much 33 years now since we started. So, to be able to have that kind of platforming and access that we have been allowed at this stage has been really strong, and we're just grateful to be able to still be here and to make some music that we are really passionate about. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of where I wanted to go next with it, is that, this many years into a career and all that sort of stuff, going into the studio to make this record, is it something whereby, at this point in your career, you're really at the privileged position of being able to make what you want to make because, you do have that fan base there that is supportive and is, at this point you're sort of going, I'm not here going looking for, Triple J rotation, in Australia and all of that sort of stuff. You're not, I mean, obviously new fans are always welcome, but, you're not shooting this at an 18-year-old, audience, so is it like, we're going to make the record we really want to make? Doesn't matter, in terms of like what, not that it doesn't matter what other people think about it, but it's like you have that sort of privilege of like, there's not necessarily a pressure on you to make a certain type of record.
Yeah, and I think, what we've found, particularly in the last decade or so, that there's, certainly the band are able to, as a group of musicians, we can, there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can kind of explore or, bring to the table. But there's certain aspects of what we do that we're exceptional at and feel the most comfortable and feel, I think, is the most effective around the Shihad kind of chemistry.
Yep.
And certainly the kind of the heavier stuff tends to sit really well with this band. So I think that we've made a commitment to using those as our
almost like a
barometer. I wouldn't want to say boundaries because that's not quite how we think of it, but I suppose we want to explore that world as it seems to work incredibly well, and we derive a great deal of pleasure working like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right insofar as, we're not making an album for an external audience or we're trying to have a certain effect outside
hit a certain thing,
enforcing what we're doing live and providing an avenue for I suppose the level of angst and aggression that's required to make it work. And I think as we've gotten older, Shihad as a vehicle for focusing our anger is a really healthy thing. It's it's cathartic in that respect. And I think in previous years we've tried to explore things musically, and our lives have been very focused on being in a band. But in this case, no, it's like a channel. It's like it's a point at which we can all come together and release. So
I love
really,
that.
really, really an important part of our lives in that respect right now.
So going back to the previous album, Five Eye, so that one was recorded with Jazz Coleman, who's most famous for being in the band The Killing Joke. Now, that particular record, like, to me, really felt really quite dark and ominous. And I mean, that kind of comes through in, if you go and listen to The Killing Joke, like, that is, really quite dark and has a really, and so what I'm saying is, like, that felt to me like that influence came in on it, but also what the thematic content of that record sort of was covering was around that sort of growing concern around, like, overzealous monitoring of population from global powers and all of that sort of stuff. And I read in some of the promo stuff for this record, John was saying that this even feels more angry, and like, it doesn't even compare on the sort of the level of frustration and anger and all of that and angst that record has. But conversely, like, when listening to the record, and especially the title track, Feel the Fire, there's a frustration there, absolutely. But to me, there's actually, that song itself feels like it has a stream of hope in it. Like a hope for the future. And I mean, is that something, have I sort of tapped into the right thing on that? To me,
I don't think that you get any artist who's in any way addressing what might be out there, whether it's locally or interpersonally or globally within society, and addressing those frustrations and addressing those dangers without that ultimately being a targeted, kind of like expression of hope and freedom.
Yeah.
And so,
it's implied, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that, one of the things that, to go back to, say, someone like John Lydon from Public Image Limited, with that line, anger is an energy, and it most certainly is. And
your anger is a gift, Rage Against the Machine.
Exactly. And so, I think that because Shihad has become, is most comfortable being that vehicle for all four of us to get that out of our systems, so it becomes a focal point. But driving that is hope for the future. Driving that is a sense that things can get better. Driving that is a sense that if we can look for the best in each other and not, crush the human spirit, that things, the future, and the future of our children, and the future of people's ability to participate in life on an even footing is secured. Yeah,
absolutely. And you worked with this one. You worked on this one with Sparky from Birds of Tokyo. I mean, so how did that? You going from Jazz Coleman to, and you had worked with Jazz on previous records, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I mean, how did that sort of? Was it early? Was it pretty early on that you realised, like, okay, this record doesn't necessarily feel like? I mean, one, maybe COVID restrictions didn't allow you to work with Jazz again, but where was it in the process where you went, I think maybe Sparky's the guy?
Really, towards very late 2019, early 2020, those discussions were had, and we were looking for someone, who could. I think we all really loved the tone of Five Eyes and the energy that Jazz gave us. So then we needed someone who could call us on our bullshit and drive the process along and bypass our own sense of selves, right? So, you've got 4 people, 33 years. Everyone's got a pretty strong ego. And sometimes those egos don't serve the project the best, right?
Yeah, okay.
And so you need someone who's able to call us out on our own bullshit and, and to a certain extent, simplify the agendas around a project. And Jazz was tremendously good at that.
Mm.
What Sparky brought to the table was all of that, because he's, an admired and respected peer, but he's carved out such a strong career for himself as a producer and a composer on top of that. Plus, he's such a great personality. He understands, every aspect of what we're doing. And he also has a really strong background in heavy music.
Yes.
Particularly when he was based in West Australia originally, he worked with a lot of bands who were, high energy, heavier. And so he knows the beast. And I think the chemistry of injecting Sparky into it was just wonderful. He produced such a great album with us, and he's such a great man and such a great guy. And it was such an honor to work with him. And, I can't speak highly enough about him. And he added just the right difference to the process from working with Jazz, whilst, we did, I think, pick up from the template we'd established on the last album, and then asked ourselves, well, we feel pretty comfortable that we can take a certain amount of this, but that we want to add some other elements to it. And Sparky just helped bring that out. And he mixed the album as well. I mean, I think it sounds fucking amazing. So, when we listen to it, he's done an incredible job on an engineering and sonic level as well.
Well, I mean, as a recording engineer and producer yourself, is that something that you're really quite happy to take the hat off when you walk into the studio? And you go, I'm here as a drummer.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I don't, when making records, I don't want involvement on that level. I really don't. And it's fine to have it like a parachute, or to know, that I can lean on that understanding, but I do want to turn up. And I think the music is underserviced by me not just being a drummer. I think that's the most important thing, is that you need to leave that responsibility up to others. Yes, you've got to argue. Conflict and those kind of aspects of making a record are really important to actually making a good one. But you want to be you've got to put yourself in a position so that you can have the right conflict. You don't want to have, mixed agendas or a misunderstanding of how you should approach something. You just want to be straight in. I'm coming at it from this angle, and this is what I want, and this is what I'm fighting for. And it makes it so much simpler and more direct. And this is the work I'm going to concentrate on. And these are the problems I'm going to think about. And these are the things, I'm going to advocate for. And that makes it much more simple, direct, and enjoyable and effective writing process and recording process. So you need someone who's on one hand, a director and sergeant major who can push the project into shape, but you also need someone who's a bit of a tiebreaker, who you ultimately know has the best interest of the project at heart. Yeah.
I mean, that at the end of the day, it kind of ends up being what they're being paid for, because,
hope.
Well, yes, but I mean, like you say, you could sit there and, turn all of the knobs and do all of the, all of that sort of stuff if you really wanted to, but it's that quality right there that sort of is the magic, I think.
Well, totally. And it's like, twiddling the knobs and everything. You're wearing two different hats, and, being the musician, being in the band, and then twiddling all the knobs, it's just not a productive place to be.
Yeah.
I think. I'm aware that Sparky does it for his own band, and hats off to him. But I think, with Shihad, you kind of need to allow the beast to do its thing, and then have someone who can help steer it and guide it and be a referee if needed.
I love it. I want to just quickly chat about the latest single, "Feel the Fire," which obviously is it's just, there's been a film clip just dropped for it and all that sort of stuff. And to me, two things about the song. One, to me, it feels like a spiritual successor to an old single, "Home Again."
Oh, okay.
It really, like, to me, feels like a callback, just in feel and vibe.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely unaware of if there's any intention of that or not, but to me, it just immediately called back to that for me. And also, and maybe I'm making this connection because you've just recently covered them, but it feels like a Crowded House, like vibe.
Covered Split Ends, not Crowded House. Strong distinction.
It was too. Apologies. Those fins.
God, why would they? If only I could determine which it was. They keep writing great songs. I can't go, that's the shit band, that's the good band.
But and the other thing is that film clip looked like just so much fun to make. And and ironically, we're on Zoom talking about it, and the first part of it, is really like the band is all talking to each other on Zoom, and it's like really feels like a comment on how we've lived our lives and our meetings, now seeing loved ones over the last 18 months or so, and then to like just quickly duck in the door, and all of a sudden you're all in with you playing drums, which I note as well, you were actually playing those drums, which means and the guys in the band were not wearing earplugs, so that must have been very loud in there.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
We had some kind of like crappy speaker on the ground that we, approximated the rhythm. We kind of got there. So,
I love that it was approximated, because it's like, oh man, you would not have been here. Like, if you're chucking a Huey Boom in there with the song playing, that's just not.
Well, one of the tricks, and I remember going to the States and did a video, and I think it was Zildjian, and they came up and they said, we got some video cymbals for you. And they gave me these cymbals there were two cymbals, glued together.
Yeah.
And they just sounded like a donk. And the funny thing was that if like those kind of stacks that people use, but if you use the right, I think the same size cymbals on top of each other, they just sound dead as hell. So one of the things we did in that is those cymbals are dead as a doornail.
Nice.
So that reduced the amount of noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha. But then what I love about it is like when you guys all elbow the walls, and it all just falls down, and you're out on this beautiful beach, and then you go for that run up the beach. It just felt really, and to me, that's what added more into that sort of sense of hope. And it just felt you guys were having so much fun. You were obviously just laughing your heads off and just having fun with it. And it's really nice on a couple of levels. Like, one, it shows you that there really is just like an incredible friendship there among the four of you. That after 33 years of being in the band, there doesn't seem to be any bullshit amongst you. Just four dudes who love playing music and have done and enjoy each other's company, but also symbolically, it just feels really free and hopeful. Like, I just thought it was great.
Thank you.
It was perfect. Yeah.
Thank you very much. No, it was enjoyable to make. Beautiful process. Very, very, very efficient direction by the guy who directed it, and it was. It was so well put together, the scheduling and the planning of the shots. It happened in one day. It was really
amazing.
Yeah. Happened in one day to kind of three different locations. It was like, really well done.
Was that the little, I assume it looks perhaps like is it a trailer or a horse float or something?
Oh, that's literally
or like a
pallets.
Tiny house.
Yeah, pallets with walls built on them.
Really?
And they're kind of nailed together very lightly so that you can knock them out.
Oh, so it actually got broken when you banged that out?
Yeah.
It wasn't meant to fall.
We did about 4 or 5 takes on it.
Yeah, right, okay.
And it was fucking hilarious. Every time you do it, it's like, you couldn't help but laugh, this fucking... It's so stupid. It was amazing. And yeah.
Was it on wheels or?
No, they had to carry it. They assembled it. We were on a beach and you couldn't drive onto the beach. You had to walk onto the beach. So they had to assemble it, make sure everything would fit. And we did that in this kind of clearing in a forest because it's a beach attached to a forest.
Yeah.
And we assembled it in the clearing, and then they had to deconstruct it and carry it to the beach and reconstruct it on the beach.
Okay. And so the effect of making it when you guys are in there and it looks like you're moving or something like that, that's just an in-camera video effect.
In terms of moving, well, no, it was quite wobbly.
Right.
It was
there's a section where it looks like the room is like it's being towed by a car and it's in a trailer, and it looks like. I mean,
that would probably be the as I said, it's like pallets.
Yeah,
trucking pallets and then walls built on it. So it's not stable. It's like. In
that regard, it would have been horrible to play drums in. Like,
actually, sounded really good. It was like so resonant.
Was there a lot of movement though? Like
it was fun.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Oh, speaking of that, drum wise, like, have you ever played on a stage that is moving, or is like some sort of like really horrible stage? I've played on shockers.
Yeah, well, I think when you're trying to play with precision, right? And then in that, you're just trying to attempt some kind of representation of what's going on in the song. And it's more about the situation and the visual representation. It's pretty hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you're on stage, a lack of stability is a real issue. So of course, it's part of the grab bag of shit you have to deal with. Different venues, different stuff. It's different often every day, and so being able to avoid that is magic, but it's part of what tests you.
Yeah, of course. Speaking of live, I'll make this the last question. You guys are heading out on tour around Australia, hopefully in the very near future. Hopefully those shows are not pushed back or too far or cancelled, but I wanted to say, you're going out with Southeast Desert Metal, and a band that's literally from the most isolated band in the world, I believe, is their title, and it seems to me like that was an important decision for you guys to make. Like there's acknowledging a First Nations band like Southeast Desert Metal, and and showcasing and highlighting that band.
Oh yeah, it's a dual thing, of course. Given the nature of what we're talking about in the album, and given the nature of the people in the band, being representative is important to us. But I also think the band is just fucking great.
Yeah,
it's like that's the bottom line. They're fucking amazing.
So much character in that
band. 100%.
They're all absolute characters.
Yeah, so let's it's about making sure that we're bringing something to the table that's entertaining for people. And to partner with them, to have them on the road, it's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, man, I wanted to wish you the best with the release of this record, and hopefully you get out on the road with it and all of that sort of stuff. Thank you so much for giving your time and having a chat with me, man. It's always a privilege, like I said.
Thank you, Tim. As is talking to you.
Cheers, mate.